So without further delay, could we now invite Ms. Gina Miller onto the stage?
Good afternoon, everyone, and that was quite an introduction. I don't have to do anything now, I can go home. But no, it's lovely to be here. It's interesting to hear how that's phrased, the introduction, because you'll read in many papers how this all came about and that I sort of popped up from nowhere and just decided one day to take on the government. It wasn't quite like that. I've been a campaigner for 30 years. It started, I think, with there's something that was instilled in me by my father, who, as you said, became Attorney General, and my mother, who was definitely the tough one in the family, which was that you have to stand up when you see something wrong. It is not about being courageous. It's not about being brave. It's actually knowing that when you feel in the pit of your stomach that something is not right, that somebody is being hurt, that somebody is being wronged, you have the power to do something about that. You have the power to stop things rotting, from society poisoning itself, from division. You as an individual with other individuals can collectively decide the future, the present and the future, and the country that we live in, the society we live in, and who hurts and who doesn't. That is a power each one of you have, and it is a power I grew up knowing I had. 31 years ago now, I had to find the strength for the first time to take on institutions and what I knew was instinctively wrong. But for me at that time, 31 years ago, it didn't come from any big political goal or any big corporate dream. It came from me being a mother, because I was about to have my beautiful baby daughter, who I couldn't wait to hold. But at that time, 31 years ago, the NHS in the UK was on its knees. It was more or less where it is now. We were short of midwives, we were short of health visitors, and there was no one to deliver my beautiful baby girl. So she was starved of oxygen. Her mental age now is 5 or 6, but at that time the advice was I should put her in an institution, send her away. And the only way I could change that at that time is if I had the money to access specialists and experts, and they would be able to help me keep her, and later on at school have something called a statement. Some of you may know what a statement is. Does anybody in the audience know what an educational statement is? No? It's if you're born with special needs or you have something, you can get a document about your needs, and that helps you get special support through school. So it means you can go to school and access education. Well, at that time, she wouldn't have been able to do that. And I felt that it was instinctively wrong that only money could buy you access to those things. I thought every single child that is born should have the right and access to whatever would help them. So that was my first big campaign. I campaigned for not just my daughter, but for all children to have access to statements. And it actually led to an act, the Special Education Act. And that is when I discovered the power of an individual, driven by determination and passion, and doing what is right, and standing up for others. And in the bad days when you feel you just can't carry on, that everyone's trying to tell you no, that everyone is telling you it's not possible, it is knowing that if you win, the effect of that changes people's lives that keeps you going. So that is where I started. I'll jump forwards a few years to what was mentioned, taking on the city. Apparently, all by myself, I could destroy the City of London and all the investment and pension sector. And what was I doing and campaigning for in that was so wrong? What I was doing was that people who were trying to save for their futures, rather than being a burden on the state, were being ripped off. The people in the city were getting richer, hiding their fees, basically getting away with the things that caused something called the financial crisis that happened in 2008. And again, I felt that was wrong. How can these people get away? How can all these institutions get away with ripping you off for your money that you're putting away? So I started calling it out. And that's when I got my first nickname in the city, which was the Black Widow Spider. Just think about how wrong that is, on how many levels. But I discovered that in a world of deceit, in a world of dishonesty, the most revolutionary thing you can do is to speak the truth. It frightens people. That is actually a quote from George Orwell. In times of dishonesty, truth is the true revolutionary act. It is not simple to do. It is not simple to speak the truth. There are many people who will try and knock you down when you do that. I had 8 years in the city of people telling me what I was doing was wrong, that it would mean we wouldn't be able to have an economy where banks were doing well, where institutions could flourish. I have no problem with people being successful. I have no problem with businesses being successful. But you give back to the society that makes you successful. You do it in a fair and honest way. You do not do it through deception and taking more than is your fair share, more fees than you should have. That is not fair on people. That is not fair on society. And it creates some of the divisions I believe we are seeing today. Divisions where people feel that there is no way up. How do you escape poverty, disillusionment? You attack each other is how you do it. Envy grows, division grows. That is what happens when we are not responsible. Wherever you are, whatever positions of power, even if you're walking down the street and you see somebody who's fallen down or is crying on a bench, you have the responsibility to stop and ask them, how are you? Those could be the most powerful words you utter to that person, because it shows that somebody cares, that they're not alone. That is why speaking up has not got to be just about big things, but actually every single act of speaking up and standing up is important. So when it came to the referendum vote on the 16th of July, I was actually involved with the whole referendum campaign from October 2015. And I was absolutely shocked at every single debate, every single studio I walked into, every hall that I did a debate in with people who were on the other side of the argument to me. I was arguing for Remain and reform, not just remain status quo. And on the other side, they had different beliefs. But I argued and debated in a civil way. We did not shout at each other or call each other names. And afterwards, quite often, in the green room it's called, behind the stage in studios, we'd have chats. And I discovered that nobody had a plan of how we were going to leave, including the leavers, because they never thought they'd win. So think about it. You wake up, there's a vote to leave, a relationship you've had for 46 years with no plan. It's like your parents coming home and saying to you, we're going to sell our house tomorrow. You see that lovely big house down the road that's got a swimming pool? We're going to have that house. And you'd be excited. You'd be insane not to be excited. Why wouldn't you want to live down the road in the nice house with the swimming pool? So you pack your bags, you're out of the street, you're out of your house, you're on the pavement, and they say to you, we haven't put in the offer yet. We haven't negotiated it yet. We just thought it'd be a good idea, an aspirational idea to go and live there. We haven't done any of the work yet. That is more or less where we were on that morning after the referendum. So I was very, very concerned, both from a social point of view, from an economic point of view, just from a curiosity point of view, about what was going to happen next. Suddenly over that weekend, we hear that the Prime Minister is going to step down, there'll be a new Prime Minister, then the week after that there's a new Prime Minister without an election. Mrs. May is going to trigger Article 50, using something called the royal prerogative. Now, because I'm a complete geek, I read things like Hansard and history books, and I've been watching what's been going on in our government in the United Kingdom for nearly a decade. And drip by drip, governments have been taking away and diminishing the role of our ministers that we elect to sit in Parliament. Parliamentary sovereignty has been being eroded bit by bit. It didn't happen overnight. It happened because we were all so busy, we forgot to keep an eye on the MPs. So they were taking advantage of that. So I said to a group of lawyers, I think we need to do something about this because nobody in this country is above the law. I don't care if you're right, wrong, which side of the argument you're from, which sort of political part of the spectrum you're from. It is that basic central part of what we believe in this country, which is everybody is equal in the eyes of the law, and that includes our Prime Minister. What happened next was that I went to see a lawyer, got them to agree, and then there were two very quite wealthy men next to me who were going to join me. But on the day that we got permission to bring the case, our law firm, the law firm I was going to use, was attacked, physically attacked, the doors of their offices. The female members of their law firm had special Facebook pages set up for them with very derogatory things saying about them. They were targeted for their religion, their gender, where they came from. I started getting death threats that afternoon, and suddenly the other two men disappeared and said they couldn't cope with the pressure. So I was there on my own, and the choice was, do I stand up for what I believe is right? Do I stand up to somebody putting themselves above the law? Doesn't matter if it's a Prime Minister. Or do I just stay silent? And when you ask yourself a simple question, if not me, who? And the answer is probably no one. You just have to find the courage. I believe we owe that to our society, to stand up when others won't. And that is simply what I did. I didn't know if we were going to win. Actually, every single expert. It's quite funny because after we won, they all told me I would win. Whereas before, they all told me I didn't stand a chance. And this included academics and professors of law and, you know, all the great and the good who write in the newspapers or on TV programs and Sky News. There was no way on earth I was going to win. But we won, not because I was doing anything radical or because I was saying anything political. I won because it was the simplest case in constitutional law. We live in a representative democracy, which means the people we elect, they're our eyes and ears. How dare anybody shut them out? They're paid their salary from our taxes, and they decide policies and politics. And policies and politics is not something that happens in a coal building in Westminster. It's what determines your lessons in your school, the water you drink, when your bins are collected, politics is policy, and policy is about people. It is not something remote. It is not something you should not be interested in. It is the very thing you should be interested in. Because if you are not, other people decide how your life will be led. So then to the second case. I never thought I'd be doing two. It was very expensive and time-consuming, as I say. My entire life has changed now. I live with full-time security. It is an extraordinary thing to have alarms around your house and have to walk your 12 and 14-year-old through the process of the security number, the procedures, the safety room. The fact that I get letters saying that because my husband is Jewish and I'm from an ethnic minority, my children should have been put down at birth because they're Mongols. That is the sort of thing that I'm fighting. And those bullies will never shut me up, because I will never let them. I will fight for me, and I will fight for all of you. And you need to fight for yourself too. Because the second court case was even more extraordinary. What Boris Johnson was trying to do was not just close down Parliament for a short while, for the 5 weeks, so that he could get through his form of Brexit. It wasn't about that. It was about closing down scrutiny again. He didn't want them to read the 587 pages. He didn't want them to debate what it said. He just wanted them to rubber stamp it and get it done, and he could say, that's my thing. I've got Brexit done. But that's not how our country, our constitution, our democracy works. Parliament is central. It is the core, central principle of our democracy. We are a representative democracy, and those we select and we elect must represent us. What is also extraordinary from the second case compared to the first case, Miller 2 as it is now called compared to Miller 1, is that the messages we got from around the world, because we are in a strange time, because not only in the United Kingdom is our democracy coming under threat. There are modern democracies around the world that are coming under threat, be it in the US, we've seen in Hong Kong, we've seen in Brazil, Bolivia, countries in Africa. There are many, many countries where the judiciary and the courts are being bullied, abused, and shut down. So we got, believe this or not, it's quite extraordinary when I think about this myself, because the court case was streamed. The Supreme Court got over 30 million people watched that case. And we have since got messages from 130 countries, Supreme Courts and judges in 130 countries who said thank you to the courts and to myself because they stood up against a bullying politician and government, and it has given them strength too to stand up. So you never know what the ripple effects of your actions are going to be. But if you go into activism, whatever you want to call it, campaigning, thinking this is about glory, this is about me being in the public eye, this is about me getting a name for myself, and you know, me becoming famous, you're never going to succeed. Because it's not about being famous. It's about being tenacious, not giving up, not willing to be bullied, not willing to be redirected from your focus. If you have those things, it is incredible what you can achieve. If there is something each and every one of you feels passionate about, get together with some people who are like-minded. It could be something small. It could be something ambitious. But you can change things. And that is the most important message I want to leave with you today, is that it's not how big you are, how successful you are. It's about how passionate you are to do the right thing. And you all have the ability to do that.